According to the French literary critic Antoine Campion, the work that won the test of time is worthy of lasting and its future is already guaranteed. Therefore, according to his perception, the classics are the works that continue being read and appreciated even with new generations, due to its aesthetic quality, the innovative approaches, and universal themes. The writers of the so-considered classic works by the critic make up the called literary canon. In Brazil, some of these widely known writers are José de Alencar, Machado de Assis, Carlos Drummond de Andrade, Graciliano Ramos, and a ton of others. It's undeniable that these writers are read in schools and occupy a feature space in the national culture, because indeed, they produce immortal works of incomparable quality. However, the process of Brazilian literary canon is not immune to the prejudices that are so rooted in the Brazilian society, and therefore, neglects important works like the ones defined as classic and condemn the forgetfulness of writers of similar aesthetic or even superior to the canons. To the Brazilian literary critic Thomas Bonici, the Western literary canon is made up of mainly works written by white male writers that are a part of the hegemonic nations. That confirms that the formation of the canon is strictly connected to racial, ethnic, economical, and of gender criteria, disrespecting the impartiality in the selection of the writers and their works. Therefore, we are left with the stories of hundreds of years of literature produced in Brazil, in which an uncountable number of black female voices that in any sort of way escaped the norms were cruelly silenced.
As a place especially occupied by white men, the Western literary canon still has a huge lack of representativeness. This is due to the fact that, even when black writers have produced amazing literary pieces of work, their voices have been silenced, forgotten, or whitened by the literary critics, creating what we call as a structural or institutional racism. However, today lots of different works are being created in an attempt to recover the real image of black writers and to prevent these works from being forgotten again. Some of these writers are the symbolist poet Cruz de Souza, whose parents were freed slaves and was born in 1861 in Cidade do Desterro, called Florianópolis today, Santa Catarina. By that time, Cruz de Souza had faced multiple episodes of racism when he tried to join the public and intellectual life. He has also fought for the abolition of slavery, but unfortunately died with 31 years, no recognition, and in poverty. His works were only recognized in the middle of the 1940s. The writer Lima Barreto was born in 1881. Just like Cruz de Souza, Lima Barreto also faced racism during his life. All of his literary works were left behind by the critics, especially because his writings were normally a denunciation of the racist, conservative society he lived in. Unluckily, he passed away at 41 years old without any recognition, but today he is seen as one of the biggest Brazilian novelists of all time. On the other hand, Machado de Assis, one of the biggest Brazilian writers, had a great recognition during his life, but your portrait has been widened for a long time. Frequently, his poor origin in Morro do Livramento, Rio de Janeiro, and his African descent were erased. There are lots of photographs and documents in which people changed his skin tone or his traits as well. Projects like Machado de Assis Real from the Zumbi dos Palmares College try to recover his real identity and to know that Memórias Póstumas de Brás Cubas, News Translation, ran out of copies for one day in the United States, is to know that he still has a huge impact on society today.
In the Brazilian history, there is many black female writers that produced works of extreme relevance and quality, but were never recognized as a part of the literary canon. The first one is Maria Firmina dos Reis. She was born in 1822 in Maranhão and was the first Brazilian female romancist. She participated in the local press, published books like Úrsula, and defended the abolitionist cause. Besides that, in a pioneer attitude, she founded a mixed free school because she believed in education as a tool of reality transformation. Maria Firmina, in her writings, presents the Black people in a human dimension and gives them a voice. Besides that, her Black woman condition allowed her to transmit a perspective of someone who felt herself the perversities of the colonial, slavery-guided, and extremely sexist society. The second one is Carolina Maria de Jesus. She was born in 1914 in Minas Gerais and was a daughter of illiterate parents, but managed to go to school for a little time and learned how to read and write, soon taking interest in the literary world. After her mother's death, she moved to the suburb of São Paulo, unemployed and pregnant. She worked as a paper picker and in her free time registered her experiences in notebooks she would find in the trash. Her first book, Quarto de Despejo, was actually originated from one of those journals that brought the memories of a Black slum woman that viewed writing as a way to get out of the social invisibility situation in which she found herself. Carolina narrates the slum day life and questions what place a Black woman like her could occupy in the society. The third one is Conceição Evaristo. She was born in 1946 in Minas Gerais and moved to Rio de Janeiro in the 70s. She worked as a domestic worker while she studied, so she could be the first person in her family to have a university degree. She did letras in college in UFRJ, worked as a public education system teacher, and had a master's and a doctorate degree. She started writing in the 90s, publishing some short stories and poems in the series Cadernos Negros. Nowadays, she has reached even more success with her literary works and activism for Black women's rights. In her writing, Conceição Evaristo carries her feelings, pains, happiness, screams and whispers in a crowd of men, and above all, women whose voices are insistently quieted. Taking what she calls escrevivência, or the writing that is born in the daily life, memories, and life experience of the writer herself and her people, she writes romances, short stories, and poems that reveal the condition of Black people in Brazil.
Literature is an expression of a nation, and due to that, it must show us the enormous amount of different voices that exist inside one society. Besides that, literature is also a mechanism of transformation, having the power to affirm and reaffirm voices and fighting against the silence. However, what is seen as the high literature by the Academy doesn't show the plurality it should demonstrate to us. Thanks to that, it's time for us to reinvent and bring new meanings to literature. Only by doing that, it will be able to really reveal the expression of a nation as a whole, and not only one specific part of it. One example of a well-succeeded attempt is the Poetry Slam, or simply Slam, a movement created in Chicago, United States in the 80s. It had the main proposal of bringing more emotion to poetry and approaching it to the people. The slam consists in battles of spoken poetry with the open microphone, where the poet's weapon is your voice and his or her ammunition is your emotion. The performances are judged by the audience itself. In Brazil, the slam came in 2008 with the slammer Roberto Sela Dalva, who conquered the third place in the Slam Poetry's World Cup of 2011 in Paris. Since then, the battles of poetry are deeply present in the Brazilian cities, breaking all the silence, raising awareness, and bringing important debates about prejudice and social issues. Some of these fundamental initiatives from marginal literature nowadays are the Sarau da Cooperifa, Slam das Minas, Sarau das Pretas, and many others. Despite from being popular, there is still a long path to walk for the recognition of the street literature, which seems very distant from the literature scene in the academy. This path is already being crossed though, and according to the slammer Riane Leão, poesia é a primeira e a última chance. Se é tudo aquilo que eles mais temem, então pode ter certeza que é a ferramenta de reconstrução mais poderosa que existe.